So let's get into the early history of Echo Park. In 1769, Gaspar de Portola would establish a camp in Echo Park on what is now North Broadway Street. There, he would be greeted by the Yang-Na Native American villagers that lived in Solano Canyon. And 12 years later, the Pueblo Los Angeles would be established. Echo Park is part of the original 17,000 square miles of the city of Los Angeles. This area, as well as Silver Lake and parts of Los Feliz, would make up the northwest area of the city. And here is Carroll Avenue in Angelino Heights, which is now the oldest neighborhood in the city of Los Angeles. That title used to belong to Bunker Hill, but Bunker Hill is no longer a place of residence. So here in the hills of Angelino Heights, you have beautiful Victorian homes that are pretty well maintained, but I know it's pretty expensive to manage the upkeep on those things. In 1870, Echo Park Lake was known as Reservoir Number 4, and it was set up to be a new drinking water system. And the lake sat below an area called Arroyo de los Reyes. Now the arroyo filled up pretty naturally with runoff from what is now present-day Baxter Street. Oh, and if you ever had the tuna here, you know it's top-notch. But to create the lake, the LA Canal and Reservoir Company built a 20-foot dam across the arroyo. And in order to flood the area with water, they would dig a canal between the LA River and the reservoir site, with the result being Echo Park Lake being the largest body of water in the city of Los Angeles. And in 1891, the LA Canal Reservoir Company would donate the reservoir to the city for public park use. And in February of 1892, the city would officially name the area Echo Park. And it would be called that because Joseph Henry Tomlinson would shout across the arroyo and would hear an echo. So he, very cleverly, would name the area Echo Park. And in the early 1900s, the northwest region of the city would become known as Edendale. It would become home to most major studios that would move out west. It was also where Charlie Chaplin would film his first full-length feature movie. William Seelig would build the first permanent movie studio in LA on Clifford Street. The early versions of Universal and Fox Studios would start right here in Echo Park. And those movie studios would eventually end up heading west to Hollywood in the 1920s. Edendale would become home to artists, writers, architects, and filmmakers in the city of Los Angeles. It would also earn the nickname Red Hill after World War II, because there would be an influx of Eastern Europeans and Russians moving into the hills. The building of the Glendale Freeway would cut Edendale in half, and the area just south of the Glendale Freeway would be renamed to Elysian Heights. Also, back in 1886, Elysian Park would permanently become a park in the city of LA thanks to Ordinance Number 218. Which means it can never be touched, and it can never become anything other than what it is right now, which is a public park. Which is, quite frankly, one of the best things the city has ever done. And here's a fun fact for all you cat lovers. So in 1952, the students at the local elementary school would see a cat eating all of their lunches during recess, and the cat would come back day after day after day. But he would only do so while school was in session, because during the summer times, that cat was never on campus. But the kids took a liking to him and gave him a name. And he was named after the room they found him, which was Room 8. And Room 8 would roam the lands of the school for the next 16 years. In the 60s, Echo Park would end up earning the nickname of Little Havana. And that was because of all the refugees fleeing Cuba. Now history recognizes the Stonewall riots in New York being the beginning of the LGBT movement. But it actually happened here in Echo Park first, in 1967.